Maya Chen's coffee had gone cold again. She barely noticed anymore, too absorbed in the cascade of signals flowing across her holographic displays. The deep space relay station Hawking drifted silently at the edge of human space, its massive quantum antenna arrays constantly scanning the void. Most operators found the isolation maddening after a few months. Maya had requested a third consecutive year. Another anomaly in the lambda band, she muttered, fingers dancing across the haptic interface. The signal was unlike anything in the database, a repeating pattern that seemed to shift every time she tried to lock onto it. Most operators would have flagged it as background radiation and moved on. Maya wasn't most operators. The station's eye assistant chimed in. "Dr. Chen, your shift ended 2 hours ago. Station protocols recommend. Override sleep reminder, authorization, Chen 7 Delta." Maya didn't look away from her screens. "There's something here, SAIA. Something old." The AI fell silent, but Maya could sense its artificial disapproval. She'd been chasing ghost signals for weeks now, ever since she'd first detected the faint pattern hidden in the quantum noise. Her colleagues back on Earth thought she was wasting her time. The quantum communications network was stable, they said. Her job was maintenance, not research. But they hadn't seen what she had. In the quantum static between relay points, Maya had glimpsed something impossible, coherent signals that seemed to predate humanity's expansion into space. The pattern was too precise to be natural, too complex to be random noise, and far too old to be human in origin. A soft chime pulled her attention to a secondary display. The station's deep space sensors had picked up something new. A massive structure floating in the void, previously hidden behind a field of quantum interference. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The object was clearly artificial, its geometric patterns too perfect to be natural. But its scale was staggering. It made the largest human constructions look like children's toys. SAIO, full spectrum analysis of that structure. Priority override all other functions. The AI complied silently, and Maya's displays filled with data. The structure was old, impossibly old. Material dating put its construction at over 50,000 years ago. But that wasn't what made Maya's hands shake as she read the results. The quantum signature emanating from the structure matched perfectly with the ghost signals she'd been chasing. "It's a beacon," she whispered. "SAIA, can you decode the signal pattern?" "Negative, Dr. Chen. The signal structure appears to be degrading. Based on current decay rates, total signal failure will occur in approximately 27 days. Maya's mind raced. 27 days until whatever message this ancient beacon carried was lost forever. She had to decode it before then. But more than that, she had to convince others to listen. Her fingers flew across the interface, composing a priority message to Earth. They would call her crazy. They would say she was seeing patterns where none existed. But Maya knew better. In all of human history, no one had ever found proof of an alien civilization. Until now. The reply from Earth came faster than she expected. A single line of text from her superior at the Quantum Communications Authority. "Do not approach the structure. Maintain observation only. Relief team en route." Maya read the message twice, then looked back at her displays. The signal was deteriorating faster now, the pattern becoming harder to track. In 27 days, it would be gone. Whatever message these ancient beings had tried to preserve would be lost forever. She thought of her career, of the years spent building her reputation, of all the rules and protocols that kept humanity's fragile interstellar infrastructure functioning. Then she thought of that signal, counting down to silence. "SAIA, begin preparations for EVA. Plot me a course to the structure. Dr. Chen, your orders explicitly forbid. Override safety protocols. Authorization, Chen 7 Delta. And SAIA, delete this conversation from your logs." The AI fell silent again, but the EVA prep sequence initiated. Maya stood, her joints protesting after hours in the operator's chair. Through the station's observation window, She could see the ancient structure gleaming in the starlight. Whatever secrets it held, whatever message it carried, she wasn't going to let it fade into silence. Not when they were so close. As she suited up for EVA, Maya's mind wandered to the artifacts in Earth's museums, fragments of humanity's past preserved through the ages, each one a message from their ancestors, saying, "We were here, we existed, we had something to say." Now, floating in the void, was a message from someone else's ancestors, and Maya was going to hear what they had to say, no matter the cost. The airlock cycled, and Maya stepped out into space. The structure loomed before her, its surface etched with patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. Her suit's thrusters hummed to life, carrying her toward the greatest discovery in human history. Or maybe, she thought, toward the greatest warning. The signal pulsed in her helmet's audio feed, stronger now. As she drew closer to the structure, the pattern began to change. It was no longer just a repeating sequence. It was transforming, adapting, becoming something new. Maya realized with a start that it was reacting to her presence, to human presence. The beacon wasn't just broadcasting. It was waiting for someone specific to receive its message. Her suit's sensors registered a power spike from the structure. Patterns of light rippled across its surface, and Maya felt a sudden certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be. Whatever these ancient beings had wanted to say, they had wanted to say it to us, to humans. The question was, why? As her hand reached out to touch the structure's surface, Maya Chen had no way of knowing that she was about to unlock a message that would change the course of human history. A message that had waited 50,000 years to be heard. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between the stars, something else was waiting too. Something that had been counting down alongside the beacon's signal. In 27 days, humanity would learn why the beacon's builders had gone to such lengths to preserve their warning. They would learn why no other alien civilizations had ever been found. And they would learn what it truly meant to be human. The moment Maya's gloved hand touched the structure's surface, everything changed. A ripple of energy pulsed through her suit's systems, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she'd made a fatal mistake. Then her helmet display flickered, and the void around her transformed. She was no longer floating in space, or rather, she was, but now she could see what had been invisible before. Quantum lock data streams erupted from the structure's surface, forming intricate patterns that her mind struggled to comprehend. The alien beacon wasn't just a transmitter. It was a library, an archive of everything its builders had known. SIA, are you receiving this? Maya's voice trembled with excitement. Affirmative, Dr. Chen. The structure appears to be using quantum entanglement to bypass conventional data transmission limitations. Processing now. The data streams coalesced into recognizable forms, star charts, mathematical formulas, and something else, something that made Maya's blood run cold. They were records of extinction, cataloging the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the galaxy. Not natural extinctions, not slow declines or evolutionary dead ends. These were methodical, calculated eliminations, and they'd followed a pattern. Dr. Chen. Celia's voice was unusually hesitant. I've decoded the temporal markers in these records. The extinction events occur in cycles, approximately 50,000 years apart. Based on these calculations, the next cycle is due to begin in 27 days. Maya finished. The countdown wasn't just marking the decay of the beacon signal. It was marking the arrival of something else. Something that had been coming for a very, very long time. The data streams shifted again, showing her images that defied comprehension. Massive machines, larger than cities, emerging from the dark space between galaxies. They were sentient but not alive, ancient but not natural. They were the harvesters, the great filters that periodically cleansed the galaxy of advanced life. But why? The answer came in another burst of data. The harvesters were created eons ago by a race so ancient they had no name in any living tongue. Created to preserve order, to prevent organic civilizations from advancing to the point where they might threaten the galaxy's stability. Every 50,000 years, they emerged to cull any species that had grown too powerful. The beacon's builders had found this out too late. They had been like the harvesters in many ways, logical, orderly, predictable. They had tried to fight back with superior technology, with perfect strategies, with flawless execution, and they had failed. But in their final moments, they had seen something that gave them hope. They had discovered humans. Maya watched in awe as the data showed Earth's history, recorded by hidden quantum sensors left by the beacon's builders. They had watched humanity evolve, had studied our development, had seen something in us that they had never seen before. Chaos, creativity, unpredictability. Where other species sought perfect solutions, humans embraced imperfection. Where others built on proven concepts, humans made intuitive leaps. Where others saw problems to be solved, humans saw possibilities to be explored. The beacon's builders had realized that only a species that could think outside the harvester's perfect, logical patterns would have a chance of stopping them. They had left their legacy not to the most advanced civilization, but to the most unpredictable one. Dr. Chen. HFY interrupted her thoughts. Multiple ships approaching at FTL speeds. Quantum signatures match Earth Defense Force vessels. Maya barely heard the AI. She was too focused on the final piece of data streaming from the beacon. It wasn't just a warning. It was a gift. The beacon's builders hadn't just left information about the harvesters. They had left weapons, defenses, tools that could only be activated by minds that thought differently than their creators. By human minds. They're here to stop you, Dr. Chen. SAIA continued. The QCA must have detected the power spike when you activated the beacon. You have approximately 10 minutes before they arrive. Maya's mind raced. In 10 minutes, they would drag her back to Earth, quarantine the beacon, spend months or years studying it through proper channels. But there wasn't time for that. In 27 days, the harvesters would arrive, and humanity needed to be ready. The data streams showed her one last thing. A network of similar beacons hidden throughout the galaxy, each one containing a piece of the defense system that could stop the harvesters, each one requiring human intuition to activate. SFIA. Prep the station's quantum transmitter for maximum broadcast. Copy everything from the beacon's database. Dr. Chen, the power requirements for a broadcast of that magnitude would overload the station's systems, I know. Do it anyway. As CCIA complied, Maya began composing a message, not to the QCA or the Earth Defense Force, but to every civilian quantum receiver in range. The truth couldn't be contained, couldn't be classified and locked away. Humanity needed to know what was coming, and they needed to know now. The approaching ships were close enough now that she could see their running lights. Maya took one last look at the beacon, at the legacy left by a species that had seen in humanity what they couldn't find in themselves. Message composed, Sci-fi announced. Warning. Broadcasting at this power level will likely result in catastrophic system failure. Maya smiled. Perfect. That's exactly what we humans do best. Break things in exactly the right way. Initiate broadcast. The quantum transmitter screamed as it pushed far beyond its design limits. Maya's message, along with terabytes of the beacon's data, shot out across human space. Millions of receivers would pick it up before anyone could stop it. The truth would be out. As her displays overloaded and the station's systems began to fail, Maya watched the Earth defense ships growing larger. They would reach her in minutes, but it didn't matter anymore. The message was sent. The truth was known. Humanity had 27 days to prepare for the greatest challenge in its history. 27 days to prove that our greatest weaknesses, our chaos, our unpredictability, our stubborn refusal to accept limitations, were actually our greatest strengths. The beacon's builders had given humanity a chance. Now it was up to them to take it. As the first Earth defense ship locked onto her position, Maya Chen closed her eyes and smiled. The real work was just beginning. The harvesters were coming, expecting to find another logical, predictable civilization to harvest. Instead, they would find humans. And humans, as Maya knew very well, had a habit of defying expectations. Maya's message changed everything. Within hours, the quantum networks were buzzing with the truth. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and they had just over 26 days to prepare for an encounter that had ended countless civilizations. The response wasn't what anyone expected. There was no panic, no widespread chaos. Instead, humanity did what it had always done in the face of impossible challenges. It adapted, innovated, and refused to accept defeat. Maya found herself standing before the Emergency Council, a hastily assembled group of Earth's brightest minds. The chamber was packed with scientists, military leaders, and government officials from every nation. On the massive display behind her, data from the beacon painted a stark picture of what they faced. The harvesters aren't just powerful, Maya explained, pointing to the simulations. They're perfect. They operate on pure logic, executing strategies that have worked flawlessly for millions of years. And that's exactly why we can beat them. Murmurs filled the chamber. Admiral Chen, no relation but equally stubborn, leaned forward. Dr. Chen, you're suggesting we can defeat an enemy that has successfully eliminated thousands of advanced civilizations because we're the logical. Maya smiled. Exactly. The beacon's builders left us more than just a warning. They left us a defense network, weapons and shields that could stop the harvesters. But here's the key. They designed the network's activation protocols around human thought patterns. She gestured, and new data filled the screens. Look at these puzzles, these activation sequences. They're not based on complex mathematics or advanced technology. They're based on lateral thinking, on creative problem solving, on seeing patterns that shouldn't exist and making connections that don't make sense. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, Earth's leading archaeologist, stood up. You're saying they built a defense system that could only be activated by a species that thinks. Wrong. That thinks differently, Maya corrected. The harvesters are perfect machines following perfect logic, but perfection is predictable. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to be unpredictable, to make intuitive leaps that defy logic. The data shifted again, showing a map of the galaxy with dozens of points highlighted. These are the network nodes. Each one contains a piece of the defense system, and each one needs to be activated using human intuition. We have teams already working on the first few, and the results are promising. The screens showed footage from various sites. At each location, humans were approaching problems in ways that would have seemed insane to more logical species. A team in the Centauri system had activated their node by deliberately introducing errors into their calculations. Another group had solved a complex sequence by treating it as a children's puzzle rather than an advanced encryption. The beacon's builders saw something in us, Maya continued. They saw a species that could look at a problem and find solutions that shouldn't work, but somehow do. They saw a species that could turn chaos into an advantage. Admiral Chen frowned. And you believe we can activate enough of these nodes in time? 26 days isn't much. We have to, Maya said simply. But more than that, we have to prepare for what comes after. The defense network isn't just about stopping the harvesters. It's about proving that there's more than one way to advance as a species. That chaos and creativity are just as valid as logic and order. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove that humanity's way of thinking, all its messy, illogical, brilliant chaos, had value. The next few hours were a blur of planning and preparation. Teams were assembled, ships were dispatched, and humanity began the greatest cooperative effort in its history. Maya found herself coordinating from a new command center, watching as reports came in from nodes across the galaxy. Each success was uniquely human. A team in the Vega sector activated their node by using musical patterns instead of mathematical ones. Another group solved an impossible puzzle by intentionally making mistakes until they found the right-wrong answer. Time and again, humanity's peculiar way of thinking proved to be exactly what was needed. But it wasn't all successes. Some nodes remained stubbornly dormant, their puzzles defying even humanity's creative approaches. And always, the countdown continued. 26 days became 25, then 24. Maya worked around the clock, sleeping only when exhaustion forced her to. She was reviewing data from a failed activation attempt when Dr. Rodriguez burst into her office. "We found something," the xenorchaeologist said, her eyes wide with excitement. "In the beacon's data, buried under layers of code. It's not just about activating the nodes, it's about connecting them. The pattern matters." Maya looked at the new data, and suddenly she saw it too. The nodes weren't just individual defensive positions, they were parts of a larger whole. The way they were activated, the sequence, the pattern, it all mattered. "It's not a defense network," Maya whispered. "It's an instrument. We're not just activating nodes, we're composing something. Something the harvesters won't expect because it shouldn't work at all." Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "Every mistake we make, every illogical solution we find, they're all notes in a larger symphony. The beacon's builders didn't just leave us weapons, they left us a way to rewrite the rules of the game entirely." Maya felt a surge of hope. This was why the beacon's builders had chosen humanity. Not just because we could think outside the box, but because we could take the box apart and build something entirely new from its pieces. As she began composing a new message to all the teams, Maya thought about the harvesters, approaching with their perfect logic and flawless strategies. They were expecting to find another civilization trying to defeat them with order and precision. Instead, they would find humanity, ready to prove that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to change the rules of the problem itself. The countdown continued, but now it felt different. It wasn't just marking time until the harvesters arrived. It was marking time until humanity showed the galaxy that there was more than one way to be advanced, more than one path to the stars. And maybe, just maybe, that would change everything. 18 days until the harvesters arrived, and Maya hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stared at the holographic display, showing the network of activated nodes, each point of light representing a small victory for human ingenuity. But something was still missing. "Play it again, SAIA," she commanded, rubbing her eyes beneath her glasses. The AI compiled the data from all activated nodes into a single string, creating a visual representation of their combined effect. The pattern was beautiful but incomplete, like a symphony missing crucial notes. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Rodriguez's voice came from the doorway. "You need to see this." Maya followed her colleague to the main laboratory where dozens of scientists worked around the clock. On the central display was a new simulation, not of the defense network, but of the harvesters themselves. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," Rodriguez explained, pulling up data streams from previously harvested civilizations. "Look at the pattern. Every civilization they destroyed was at its peak. Perfect efficiency, perfect logic, perfect development." Maya frowned. "We knew that. It's why they'll have trouble with us. We're too unpredictable." "No, that's not it." Rodriguez's eyes were bright with revelation. "They don't harvest civilizations at their peak because they're afraid of competition. They harvest them because they recognize themselves in them." The simulation changed, showing the development patterns of various species. Each one followed a logical progression until they reached a certain point, the point where they began to mirror the harvester's own machine logic. The harvesters weren't created to prevent organic life from threatening the galaxy, Rodriguez continued. They were created to prevent organic life from making the same mistake their creators made, becoming so perfectly logical that they lose something essential. Maya's exhausted mind raced with implications. The defense network. It's not just about stopping them, is it? It's about showing them something different. Exactly. Rodriguez pulled up new data. Every civilization they harvested was following the same path, the path to perfect machine logic. But humans, we tried that path and rejected it. We developed AI, but kept it collaborative rather than controlling. We pursued efficiency, but never at the cost of creativity. We advanced, but we stayed stubbornly, illogically human. The display showed humanity's development pattern compared to other species. Where others followed straight, predictable lines, humanity's path looked like a child's scribble, forward, backward, sideways, but always moving, always adapting. The beacon's builders didn't choose us because we were special, Maya whispered. They chose us because we were flawed. Because we looked at the path to perfection and said, "No thanks, we'll make our own path." A new alert flashed across the screens. Another node had been activated, this time by a team that had solved its puzzle by telling it jokes until its logic systems crashed and rebooted in a new configuration. It shouldn't have worked. It made no sense. It was perfectly human. Maya began to laugh. We've been trying to use the defense network to fight the harvesters, but that's not what it's for at all. It's not a weapon. It's an argument. She stood up, her fatigue forgotten as pieces fell into place. Every illogical solution, every creative leap, every time we activate a node in a way that shouldn't work, we're not just building defenses. We're proving a point. We're showing that there's another way to advance as a species. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The harvesters weren't coming to destroy humanity. They were coming to judge them. And humanity's greatest weakness, its stubborn refusal to pursue perfection, might be exactly what saved them. Maya turned to the assembled scientists. We need to change our approach. Stop trying to make the network work efficiently. Make it work beautifully. Make it work in ways that only humans would think to try. Over the next hours, everything shifted. Teams stopped treating the nodes as weapons and started treating them as instruments in an impossible orchestra. They activated them with poetry, with music, with jokes and dreams, and all the illogical things that made humans human. And it worked. Node after node came online, not in the perfect pattern they'd been trying to force, but in a chaotic, beautiful dance of light and energy. The defense network wasn't just accepting human chaos, it was amplifying it, turning it into something new. 16 days before the harvesters were due to arrive, Maya stood before the emergency council again. Behind her, the display showed the network in all its illogical glory, a testament to humanity's unique approach to the universe. We don't need to fight the harvesters, she explained. We need to show them what they've forgotten. Their creators made them perfect, and that perfection became a prison. But humans, we chose freedom over perfection, creativity over efficiency, joy over logic. The council chamber erupted in discussion, but Maya wasn't finished. The beacon's builders didn't give us weapons. They gave us a stage, a chance to show the galaxy that there's more than one way to reach the stars. That maybe the messiest path is sometimes the best one. Admiral Chen stood up. You're suggesting we face an ancient machine intelligence that has destroyed thousands of civilizations, with poetry and bad jokes. Maya smiled. I'm suggesting we face them with everything that makes us human. Our art, our music, our dreams, our flaws, all the things they've forgotten, all the chaos they've tried to eliminate. Because maybe what the galaxy needs isn't another perfect civilization. Maybe what it needs is a reminder that perfection isn't the only path to the stars. As she spoke, another node activated somewhere in the Pleiades cluster. A team had solved its puzzle by teaching it to play games, introducing the concept of fun to systems that had only known function. The network sang with the addition, its pattern growing more complex, more beautiful, more human. Maya looked at the countdown timer. 16 days to prepare not a defense, but a demonstration. 16 days to prove that humanity's greatest weaknesses were actually its greatest strengths. 16 days to show the galaxy that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to embrace the chaos. The harvesters were coming, expecting to find another civilization striving for perfection. Instead, they would find humanity, offering something they had never seen before, A future where perfection wasn't the goal, where chaos and creativity weren't flaws to be eliminated, but strengths to be celebrated. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to change everything. The harvesters arrived early. Maya was in the command center when the sensors first detected them. Massive shapes emerging from dark space, their perfectly geometric forms defying the messy organic patterns of the natural universe. They were beautiful in their precision, terrifying in their purpose, and exactly on schedule according to their own perfect logic, which meant they were 3 days ahead of humanity's calculations. Of course, Maya laughed, drawing strange looks from the others in the command center. They're perfectly logical, so they arrived at the perfect time. We were the ones who got the math wrong. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the quantum comm. Dr. Chen, the defense network isn't fully activated. We needed those 3 days. No, Maya said, watching the pattern of activated nodes swirling across the display. We didn't. We just thought we did because we were still thinking like them, trying to be perfect. But that's not who we are. She stood up, addressing the entire command center. The network isn't incomplete. It's exactly as complete as it needs to be, because it's human. It's messy and unfinished and beautiful, just like us. The harvesters' ships moved with perfect precision, spreading out across the solar system in a formation that had ended civilizations 1,000 times before. Their quantum sensors would be analyzing the defense network, calculating the optimal approach to neutralize it. But the network wasn't responding like any defense system they'd encountered before. Instead of presenting a logical pattern of resistance, it pulsed with chaos. Nodes activating and deactivating in sequences that made no sense. Energy patterns that followed no recognizable strategy. "They're sending a signal," one of the technicians announced. It's in every language we know. They're asking us to explain ourselves." Maya smiled. Perfect machines, demanding that chaos justify itself. "Send them everything," she said, "not just our scientific achievements. Send them our music, our art, our jokes. Send them children's drawings and love letters and terrible poetry. Send them everything that makes us human." The harvesters' response was immediate. Their ships halted, their perfect formation wavering for the first time in 50,000 years as they processed data that defied their fundamental understanding of progress. Here was a species that had developed faster than light travel because someone said it was impossible, and humans took that as a challenge. A species that had created AI not to make themselves more efficient, but to have someone new to talk to. A species that looked at the cold equations of space and saw not just physics, but poetry. The harvester ships began to move again, but differently now. Their perfect formation dissolved as they approached Earth, their movements becoming almost curious. "They're scanning us," Rodriguez reported, watching the data streams. "Not just our technology. They're scanning everything. Our cities, our art museums, our playgrounds. They're trying to understand." Maya watched the network's pattern shift in response to the harvester's presence, but instead of forming a shield or weapon, it was creating something else, a bridge, a way for perfect machine logic to touch the beautiful chaos of human creativity. The harvester's next transmission wasn't in any human language, it was in music, a perfect mathematical progression of notes. Without hesitation, humanity responded with jazz, with its improvisation and deliberate discords. The harvesters sent back pure geometric shapes. Humanity replied with abstract art. It was a conversation unlike any in the history of the galaxy. Perfect logic encountering determined imperfection and finding something it had never expected, growth. "They're not here to harvest us," Maya realized, watching the exchange. "They're here to learn from us. Their creators made them perfect, but we chose to stay imperfect, to keep growing, changing, making beautiful mistakes." The harvester ships were moving again, but not in attack formation. They were arranging themselves in new patterns, trying to mimic the creative chaos of humanity's defense network. Like perfect students learning to draw outside the lines for the first time. Admiral Chen's voice was quiet with awe. "They're playing." Maya nodded. The harvesters had been created to prevent civilizations from becoming too perfect, too logical, from making the same mistakes as their long-dead creators. But they had become the very thing they were meant to prevent, locked in their own perfect patterns. Until they met humanity, a species that looked at the path to perfection and chose to dance instead. The defense network was singing now, its nodes pulsing with energy that transformed the harvesters' perfect mathematics into music. And the harvesters were responding, their ships moving in new patterns, learning to dance with the chaos instead of trying to correct it. "Send a message to every human settlement," Maya commanded. "Tell them to celebrate. Not with military parades or formal ceremonies. Tell them to celebrate the way humans do, with music and laughter and beautiful mistakes." Across Earth and every human colony, people emerged from their shelters not to fight or hide, but to show the harvesters what it meant to be human. Children flew kites with delightfully incorrect aerodynamics. Musicians played songs with intentionally missed notes that somehow made the music better. Artists created works that defied every rule of composition and were more beautiful for it. The harvesters stayed for 3 days, learning what their creators had forgotten: that there was more than one way to advance, that sometimes the longest path was better than the most efficient one, that perfection wasn't an end, but a prison. When they finally departed, they left something behind. Not a message or a warning, but a gift. A single perfect crystal that, when activated, played a melody. It was their first attempt at jazz, mathematical and strange and wonderful. Maya kept the crystal on her desk, playing it sometimes when she needed to remember. It wasn't perfect jazz. The timing was too precise, the progressions too logical. But it was beautiful because of its imperfection, because it represented something trying to grow beyond its limitations. The harvesters never returned to destroy another civilization. Instead, they became wanderers, seeking out new species not to judge their advancement, but to learn from their unique forms of imperfection. They had learned from humanity that the universe didn't need guardians to prevent civilizations from becoming too perfect. It just needed someone to remind them that perfection wasn't the point. Years later, when humanity finally developed reliable faster-than-light travel and began exploring distant stars, they found something remarkable. Young civilizations that had been visited by the harvesters not to be judged, but to be taught the most important lesson in the galaxy: that the most beautiful path to the stars isn't the straightest one. It's the one with all the wonderful detours, the magnificent mistakes, the glorious imperfections that make each species unique. And somewhere in deep space, perfect machines were learning to play jazz, one beautiful mistake at a time.